Hamas agreed to a Gaza ceasefire proposal from mediators, but Israel said the term did not meet its demands and pressed ahead with strikes in Rafah while planning to continue negotiations on a deal. Our next report tells you more.
There was cheering in Rafah in Gaza on Monday night after Hamas said it had accepted a ceasefire proposal from mediators, even as residents fled the city in fear of an Israeli assault. But any likelihood of such a ceasefire taking place was quickly played down by Israel. Hamas said in a brief statement that its chief had informed Qatari and Egyptian mediators that the group accepted their proposal for a ceasefire. It comes as Israeli forces struck Rafah and ordered residents out of parts of the city, which had served as a last refuge for more than 1 million displaced Gazans. A spokesperson for the Israeli military said all proposals that would release hostages held in Gaza would be considered, but said that for now, its operations would continue. In Tel Aviv, families of hostages kidnapped by Hamas in the October 7 attack called on President Benjamin Netanyahu to take the deal.
Save lives, don't talk about fighting in blood.
An Israeli official speaking on condition of anonymity said the proposal that Hamas had accepted was a watered-down version of an Egyptian offer and included elements that Israel could not accept. An official briefed on the peace talks, also speaking on condition of anonymity, said, however, that the offer was effectively the same as one Israel had agreed to at the end of April. Israel said on Monday it was conducting limited operations in part of Rafah, following a rocket attack that killed 4 Israeli soldiers the day before. Omar Shakir with Human Rights Watch said an invasion of Rafah would be, quote, unlawful and catastrophic.
The areas that have been marked for evacuation are areas that have been decimated by Israeli forces that do not have the infrastructure needed for human life.
A spokesperson for the U.S. State Department said Washington would discuss the Hamas response with its allies.
It would bring an immediate ceasefire. It would allow increased movement of humanitarian assistance, and so we're going to continue to work to try to reach one.
We earlier spoke to Ian Bremmer, the president and founder of the Eurasia Group and G0 Media, who talked to us about tensions in the Middle East. Take a listen.
It appears that both the United States and Iran, not to mention, of course, the Gulf states, China, the Europeans, there are a lot of countries here that strongly want to ensure that this conflict does not escalate out of control across the region. Unfortunately, the two principal antagonists, Hamas and the Israelis, are not so interested. They think that there's still a lot of unfinished business here, and that makes it a lot harder to contain. I can see what the resolution looks like in the sense that, you know, a Palestinian Authority with a technocratic government needs to be running Gaza, and the security needs to be provided externally, maybe with Egyptian soldiers and Gulf money and support from the U.S. and the UN. I mean, I can see that outcome being successful, but I don't see this Israeli government supportive of that outcome. So we would need a new Israeli government, which could happen within 6 or 12 months. I mean, the one country that could play more of a role that hasn't so far is Iran. And I say that because Iran is, of course, the primary ideological, military, and intelligence supporter for the so-called axis of resistance, which includes its proxies in Syria and Iraq, perhaps now Bahrain, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and also Hamas in Gaza. I think that part of the reason the Israelis have been fairly austere in how many troops they have on the ground in Gaza, and most of the actual troops have been withdrawn at this point, is because they're a small country, they're a small economy, and they want to make sure that they will be able to defend the northern border should hostilities open up with Hezbollah, whether the Israelis initiate them or whether it comes from Lebanon. I think that's an open question. If the Houthis are involved in a broader war, America is going to be involved in that. The UK is going to be involved in that. Probably Germany, France will be involved in that. If the Iranians are involved in a direct war, the U.S. will be involved. So, I mean, certainly there is an interest of the Israelis to the Israeli government, certainly, in recognizing that if they're poking the bear in Iran and Iran responds and retaliates in a spectacular way, then the Americans will get involved in the war. And you will remember.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.